Leticia James is in a whole lot of trouble. Of course, we knew that, right? But things are getting worse for one Leticia, because you see, people are turning on her. Her own party is turning on her. The media establishment there in New York, they are turning on her. And you know what? The voters are turning on her. You know, she is facing some pretty serious allegations, as we well know, looking at 30 years in prison for violation of 18 USC 1014, false statements to obtain a federally insured loan, USC 1001, false statements to the government. Subpoenas are being issued. They have been issued in the grand jury investigation into one Leticia James. Now, you know, this is actually for her alleged mortgage fraud. I mean, I actually think the woman should be investigated for being an overzealous prosecutor who's trying to take down people simply because of their political beliefs, bankrupt people, right? To the tune of $500 million that she has in an outstanding bill, I should say, with Donald Trump. Just outrageous. Anyway, Leticia, baby, is, I think, going to have to eat her own words. And her own words were, when powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of honest and hardworking people. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank to get a mortgage, to buy a home. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. There simply cannot be different rules for different people. Now Donald Trump is finally facing accountability. This is what she wrote. Remember when she was so thrilled and victorious and was planning to take over Trump Tower when she got him hit with the nearly $500 million fine from Judge Arthur Erdogan, or however you say his name. Now Donald Trump is finally facing accountability for his lying, cheating, and staggering fraud. Because no matter how big, rich, or powerful you think you are, no one is above the law. I mean, it's just amazing, except that, you know, she somehow thought she was. Because while this was all going down, right? While it was all going down with Donald Trump, she was out there filing for a mortgage in the state of Virginia. And according to documentation, she put down that it was her primary residence. Now, why would you do that? Oh, you get a better loan, you see, a better interest rate. It's the exact same thing she's trying to accuse him of doing. The only difference is, you know, he was going after Deutsche Bank for money. She's going after taxpayers for money because these are federally insured FHA stuff loans. So that's where the distinction is. And that's where it gets really tricky. And we're going to get to everybody deserting her. Andrew Cuomo, as I said, just can't stand her. And I really can't stand Andrew Cuomo, but you know, given if you're going to pick sides in this one, I know which one I'm going with. Anyway, I want to get to the FHA director who said, some of you have seen this before, that basically he won't even refer to her by name. Like, he has such little respect, I think, for this woman that he keeps calling her the subject. He went on with my former colleague Maria Bartiromo and spoke about just exactly what she did and why they're so convinced that this is fraud. Listen up.
Recommended that the DOJ investigate New York Attorney General Leticia James over alleged mortgage fraud. The AG, Leticia James, has responded. We don't have the video, but here's the quote. "This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia resident. And prior to that, I indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. They just took the power of attorney, and they're using that as a basis for enforcement of their investigation." Bill, do you know why she said she was a resident of Virginia on the power of attorney, if, in fact, she wasn't?
Well, I know that we are mortgage experts, and we only refer things that we think are mortgage fraud, and we stand 100% behind the letter. I'll let the letter speak for itself. I do know, and I have seen some reports from that subject, from that subject's criminal defense lawyer, saying certain things. I'll leave it to the DOJ to correct various things. But again, when we see mortgage fraud, we are going to report it. When we see mortgage fraud, we are going to prosecute it within the confines of our duties. And we are not going to be intimidated by a subject's criminal defense lawyer. We are not going to be intimidated by a politician, or just because you have an Esquire behind your name. We are not going to be intimidated by people. If we see mortgage fraud, we're going to do something about it. And I think that you're going to see us be taking this on in a big way. Mortgage fraud is a big problem.
It's a big problem, right? And so they're trying to make a big stink about this, and I think they get a live one, right? That's what I think. They're actually bringing in a big company to actually help them over at the FHA to spot this more frequently. But I mean, this one's kind of obvious, right? I mean, if you're putting down that you live in the state of Virginia, that this is going to be your primary residence, yet you're working as the AG in New York, and before you sit there and tell me, and I know this is all just alleged, right? She's going to sit there and plead her independence and her, innocence and say, oh, but, this was just a clerical mistake. I'm sorry, you're a lawyer. How does this happen? And by the way, how does it happen over and over again? Because there are repeated violations by one Leticia James, as we all well know. FHA loans, they involve federal oversight, of course, because this is the federal government that is guaranteeing the money. Very different, again, than, shall we say, what she was going after Donald Trump for, something that, the court noticed. The court definitely noticed, because you didn't have any victims. It was a private transaction, a commercial dispute. I want to take you back to what we saw from the appellate court, who, by the way, I don't know what the heck they're doing there. Is Kathy Hochul preventing them, I just ask, from actually throwing this thing out of court? Because we know where the judges stand. Hey, we've listened to the entire appellate arguments right here on this show. I've played you every clip, okay? But here's the judge saying, hey, this is a private transaction. Very unlike, say, what Bill Pulte was just talking about, where the FHA is guaranteeing that loan.
It was using...
I'm sorry, but what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors.
Well, to go back to the first question about whether there's other examples of this, there are other examples of this. In the First American case, the Attorney General brought a 6312 case where the transaction at issue was between a very big bank, Wells Fargo, and a professional appraisal firm.
But it wasn't wasn't the concern there that the public would ultimately be negatively impacted and affected by what those corporate actors were doing?
And that concern is here as well, because when you have hidden risks getting injected into the market, that hurts the market and honest participants in the market. And the legislature also decided, contrary to what defendants think, that making sure that business in New York stays honest is the way to...
So she wants to go back to, it's hurting the market overall. Can we just, come back to reality for a second? In that particular arrangement, Deutsche Bank said, oh, we take that trade, we take it all day long, we take it again and again and again. We do it again. And everybody made money. So where's your victim, Letitia? This is Judith Vance getting slammed down right from the get-go when she has to argue this garbage case before the appellate court.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Well, several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Boom. Okay. Little to no impact on the public marketplace. So you see, people are getting a little tired. They were tired of that case, right? Maybe you had a contingency of people in Manhattan supporting her. But I think you go out to the rest of the state and, that's where you see the truth. Her party is deserting her. Her voters are deserting her. Quick flash of some of these numbers here. Before we get to the numbers, remember what happened. Again, history of mortgage. How do we say this? If we don't want to say fraud, I guess we could say alleged fraud, but we could also say, well, kind of odd little things happening. I'm looking for a term to describe why the heck you would put your dad down and say that you were his wife on a mortgage application. I mean, I realize you're going all the way back to May 20th of 1983, but Letitia, you get a little bit of a history, I think, going on. Oh, and then there was that brownstone in Brooklyn, right? She's saying, I only have 4 units, because you see, the 4 units qualifies for some public money. But in truth, she had 5 units. So she did it again there. And New York is, by the way, looking into that. You get the big whammy, right? Here's the actual document. You can see what's circled there. She's saying that this is her primary residence. Oh, it's just a clerical error. That's all it is. Well, what were the other things? Like, is it a clerical error that you put yourself down as your dad's wife? I mean, is this like Ilhan Omar territory or something? I don't know. But I think she was lying, okay? This woman is a liar. That's what she does. And she's continuing to lie when she insists on her innocence, as she has been doing. It's a little bit difficult to hear her. It's always difficult to hear her, but I'm wondering if we have her comments there to the group in New York City that she was trying to plead her innocence to. You see, she has to come out and say something now.
As you know, we filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump and his family. We secured $454 million judgment against him, which is on appeal. The case is on appeal. I have no idea when that case will be decided. This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, but prior to that, I had indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. And in the mortgage application, I indicated that I would not live in Virginia and I was not a resident. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for enforcement. For their investigation.
You keep telling yourself that, okay? I think everybody's still wondering how it is that you, as an attorney yourself, are turning over power of attorney and then blaming the power of attorney, blaming someone else who wrote down that this was going to be your primary residence. One would have to think, I'm just speculating here. Again, these are all allegations. One would have to think that there was some kind of thought going into the process in terms of the mortgage itself, right? If she had secured or was going to secure a mortgage for this, was she doing this under the assumption by everybody that this was her primary residence? No, it was just a residence apparently for her niece. I'd like to know if the niece was getting any public funding for this one. Right? This is very, very, very suspicious. And again, if it were isolated in and of itself, we'd say it's not good. She's an attorney. She ought to know better. But this is more than an isolated incident, right? You saw, by the way, this is the house that was in question. You saw the brownstone in Brooklyn. Boom. You saw the house that she got with her father back in '83, where she said she was married to him. And so you start to put together a narrative here, if you're me or anyone else with a few brain cells that sort of suggests this woman is a constant, notorious liar. Stephen Miller certainly believes so, the president's advisor.
Leticia James says the allegations against her are nothing more than a revenge tour by the Trump administration. What's your response?
My response is that Leticia James is one of the most corrupt, shameless individuals ever to hold public office. She is guilty not only of those crimes, but of countless more crimes by using and abusing her public office to try to persecute an innocent man, depriving him of his rights, engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct our election, and to overthrow our democratic processes and procedures. She is guilty of multiple significant serial criminal violations.
Yeah. Right. And then this is the biggie, because, again, you're an attorney, you're going after somebody for alleged mortgage fraud, and at the very same time, you're not going to dot your I's and cross your T's on your own applications. I'm not buying it. I'm really not. I don't think voters are either. So the grand jury investigation has begun. Subpoenas have been issued. They're out. We're waiting on an indictment that could come sometime very, very soon, I would expect. Meanwhile, her poll numbers are sinking, okay? Letitia is seeing a real struggle. Her campaign is on the ropes, according to one city journal writing about it there in New York. She's lost the media. She's lost her party. she hates Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo mutually returns the feelings on the other end. And, he's probably going to go on to be the next mayor of New York. So if New York is her only place of getting any kind of backing, what actually happens to Leticia James? Let's look at these numbers. Okay, so she is doing far worse, ladies and gentlemen, than one Senator Chuck Schumer. They keep talking about Chuck Schumer. Oh, Chuck Schumer, they say, is going to be ousted by the likes of AOC. And so he's so vulnerable. Well, I got news for you. You want to talk about who's vulnerable? It's one Attorney General, Leticia James, who's got favorable ratings of 40%, unfavorable ratings of 33%, and 27% say they just don't know. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries is in horrible, horrible shape as well. Take a look at that, 38% favorable. So he's even doing worse than her. Unfavorable, though, a little bit lighter, 27%, 36% do not know. Okay, these guys are in serious, serious trouble. Serious trouble. All right. So she's in trouble. They're in trouble. Their party's in trouble. Meanwhile, the media can't stand her anymore. I mean, they are switching. If you read the article about how her campaign is in so much trouble, it's in part because of the Siena College research poll that I just showed you, where her unfavorables, right, are quite large, 40 to 33%. That split is worse than one would expect, they write, for a Democrat Attorney General of New York. Most Democrats viewed the Attorney General favorably when she was underwater, with Republicans viewed negatively in the region, except for New York City. So last time around, it was sort of like she kind of skated by because nobody likes her other than in New York City. And now it's getting bad because take a look at this. And we've been through some of this data before, but I want to show you the Siena College poll. You have 79% saying that they back deporting immigrants convicted of a crime in this country. Well, that is not what Letitia believes, right? Letitia is out there tweeting that we need to save them all, and you can't have ICE in Rikers, etc. ICE is in Rikers, by the way. 39% backed deporting immigrants with no criminal record. 42% opposed. 59% do not want taxpayers paying for migrants' medical care. 25% in favor. 26, I should say. 48% support federal efforts to deport all illegal migrants. 31% opposed. These are New York numbers, okay? So this is the state of New York. This is the backdrop that she's running against, all while she was out there going, too male, too pale, too stale, when she talked about Donald Trump. I mean, we don't have to look at the sound again because it just makes your skin crawl, right? But I think you need to remember the context around her and how much vitriol there was, and he won. And they discovered that you, Letitia, in such a poetic way, are now being hauled into court for something that you accused Donald Trump of doing that everybody seems to be in agreement with was not actually a crime. So her poll numbers are sinking and she is challenged, and the media is like, we don't want anything to do with her. Meanwhile, take a look at this. She's out there trying to warn against Andrew Cuomo. And I said to somebody yesterday, this actually makes me want to pull for Andrew. And I don't really like him at all. Like, let me stress that again. At all. All right. And I blame him for a lot of the horror that went down in New York during the days of 2020. But I find this amazing. So Letitia, who is a Democrat, should be kind of, linked up with him. But no, they can't stand each other. They can't stand each other. And so she's out warning against Andrew Cuomo running for, president? Excuse me? He actually just wants mayor right now, even as both could be criminally charged by Donald Trump's DOJ. Don't forget, Andrew Cuomo's in trouble. Judge Jeanine's going after that. We talked about that in one of the episodes just the other day. I encourage you to go take a look, because Judge Jeanine, who basically doesn't have a whole lot of love lost for one Andrew Cuomo, is taking that case on. They're looking into what went down with the nursing homes and the tragedies that ensued under none other than Andrew Cuomo's watch. So I'll just say this. She's lost everyone, literally, positively everyone. So I don't know what you do when you're Letitia and you can't even rely on the media there to help you, because you created such a disaster of your own. Leticia James, caught in a war of her own making, is the headline out of New Yorker magazine most recently, in which they write, this is great, you guys, this is just great. It is a fact beyond reasonable dispute, they say, that Leticia James weaponized her official power as New York's Attorney General to pursue Donald Trump for political purposes. Yes, it is a fact. It is a fact. So isn't that in and of itself enough reason to actually disbar her? I mean, if you are an AG and you are doing everything for just political motivation, then what are you doing in there as AG? Why are you continuing on as a lawyer? How are we allowing people like that to actually practice law when they have literally no respect? They just treat it as a weapon. I don't want an AG like that. Do you? I mean, a lot of people were coming out and saying this is actually going to be the ruin of New York City. I mean, I'd say you kind of had me at taxes, right? New York City's, 4% income tax that they throw on top of the larger state tax, which is, of course, on top of the federal tax. And given the SALT thing, I don't know if you're going to be able to really continue. Well, we'll see. Like that's part of what's up for grabs, and that's part of the whole Donald Trump fiasco thing that we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's not fair. It's not fair that Texas or New Hampshire or any other state that actually has fiscal responsibility sort of instilled in them. Florida's another one. They shouldn't have to pay for New York. I'm sorry. Like that just shouldn't exist. And so I'm actually of a believer that that SALT thing is completely unfair. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to what's going on here with her, because I'm telling you, the media has turned on her. The Democrats are turning on her. The media is turning on her. Part of it is, you got to ask why. I think it's because they actually really think she's guilty. I really do. I think that's why. And so with everything that's going on, you kind of got to pick your battles. But this particular writer in New Yorker is writing that during the trial, James would make a series of wildly inappropriate out-of-court statements that would ordinarily get a prosecutor fired. At one point, she publicly branded Trump and his family members as lying while they were testifying. I mean, Tishy, baby. Now she has to go and turn to, I guess the local media was too hard on her. She has to go to MSNBC, but not even MSNBC. She's going to like the podcasts on MSNBC. I don't think these do that well. We're in the top 100, by the way. We climbed number 36, up from number 52. Can't say the same about this guy, but hey.
You mentioned the lawsuit, which was one of the first lawsuits your office was part of, and one of the sort of earliest responses to the Trump administration, which is on the question of birthright citizenship. 14th Amendment of the United States clearly states in the text of that amendment that that all persons born in the United States are citizens thereof, and have all the privileges and immunities of that citizenship. There's a famous Supreme Court case settling this as birthright citizenship, having to do with a Chinese immigrant who, back in the 19th century.
And born out of slavery as well.
I'm sorry, say that again?
And also born out of slavery.
Right, born out of slavery. So this has been black letter law for a very long time. I think also the understanding at the time is that this is the meaning of it. They have presumed to revoke it in an executive order, which even if they could, I don't think they could do it through an executive order, but that's another question. Now, many people, I think, thought this was facially absurd, an enormous Hail Mary from them.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court just granted oral arguments. But they
I'm sorry. I can't sit through that. Is it Rachel? Is it Chris? It's like the lookalike. It's going to take them forever to get to the good part. But basically, she says, I'm totally innocent. This is just Donald Trump, doing his thing. And she's giving her same old spiel that she gives to everyone. But what I would say, that particular situation, that is her trying to say, you can't actually deport people who have been born here, even if they were born to illegal families. And so she's trying to fight that one. She's fighting everything, right? Like she's so proud of all the things that she's fighting there, except, I think that the average New Yorker, again, we'll just go back to her polls, doesn't think that Letitia cares about fighting for them, right? They don't like her now. I mean, again, back to the media, I find this amazing because it's a very, very, very liberal publication. They're saying that James's theory of liability was so flimsy that it barely conceived her previously acknowledged motivation to stick one to Trump by any means available. The purported fraud victims were multi-million-dollar banks, right? Foreign banks. that were repaid in full on their loans to the Trump Organization and made millions of dollars in profit through interest payments. Unsurprisingly, a New York appellate division panel voiced pointed skepticism about James's victimless case and seems poised to either substantially reduce the verdict or throw it out. And so that's gonna have a big hit to her as well. She looks like a complete and utter total fool with the poetic symmetry of now the Eastern District of Virginia issuing federal subpoenas to Leticia James and everyone around her as the media walls close in, as the financial walls close in. The lady doesn't have any money. So now, oh, this is poetic, right? She's going to have to sell some of her assets to pay off her debts? She's got no money. How's she going to pay for the fancy schmancy lawyer that used to represent Hunter? I mean, at least he had art to sell. What do you got, Tishy? Oh, the house in Norfolk. Did I say that right? Virginia. Someone said the other day it was like poor folk, Norfolk. There we go. Okay, now I got it. Anyway, Abby Lowell, he's a pretty penny, right? Maybe he'll take you on pro bono. Not. No one's taking you pro bono. No one likes you. The media doesn't like you. Andrew Cuomo, who may be the next mayor of New York, really doesn't like you. Oh, I don't know what you're going to do then. All your funding's going to dry up because nobody in New York State likes you, honey bunny. Okay, take a look here. She wants $10 million. No wonder they don't like her. $10 million to pay for Abby Lowell. And they wrote this somehow in there, tried to like slip a fast one by everybody, but leave it to the media. This is when they do a good job at their job. The New York Post picking up on it, even New York Magazine, again, liberal place, picking up on it. She has inexplicably chosen to use the resources of her public office to respond to the investigation, they write. James has again displayed dubious ethical instincts in her response to the pending inquiry. Dubious ethical instincts. You better believe these are super dubious. John Luna, thank you so much for the support. Let me see if I can get you up there. Okay, we're going to try again on another screen. You see, my tech skills are ever so slightly challenged from time to time. I think this is incredibly poetic. But John, thank you for the support. We're fully independent over here. We like it that way. So it's really great all that you guys are doing to bring attention to the show. He's just giving me a super chat. Nice. Good afternoon to you as well. Thank you again for all the support. Much appreciated. This woman, we do this story a lot, and people say, why do you keep doing it? And one, I do it because, well, to me, this was the most fascinating case, okay? The most fascinating case of all the cases, and perhaps just the worst. Like, Fanny's was bad. I get it. Alvin Bragg's was bad. Jack Smith, of course. But this one, and perhaps it goes back to my financial background, I really thought was threatening in terms of overall business in the state of New York, and importantly in New York City, which is the financial capital of the world. So you've got some kind of crazy DA out there who has a vendetta. It reminds me, I also spent a lot of time, about 6 weeks, covering the Duke lacrosse story. Remember that horrible thing? Down at Duke University where these poor kids were accused of a heinous crime by a crackpot of a woman. And I'm just telling you, I remember getting off the plane, and that was a lot of years ago, right? So 20 some odd years ago. And I was still sort of relatively naive and new to journalism. So I'm like, okay, I have to be really unbiased here. I can't let my own, and I was like, I just know they're innocent. And this is before talking to anyone. I have good instincts, guys. I really do. I got to tell you, sometimes my instincts get the better of me. Right, I was a little too vocal in 2020. Good news is I'm over here. We're having more fun anyway, aren't we, than I ever did at Fox. But the truth of it is I'm often very good at spotting sort of news cycles and big issues, even before they're out there in general. And so that can kind of get you in trouble in the real world, but it's kind of fun over here in sort of this new media land where I'm permitted a little more rope, if you would. I would say, though, that this reminds me of that. So that many years ago, I was like, gosh, I really think these kids are innocent. And I was right. All right, that was an aggressive, nasty, political animal of a DA in Mike Nifong. And he wound up getting disbarred for that, right? And he was run out of town. I mean, the guy was a total jerk. He did that for his reasons because he was running for re-election. He was trying to appeal to his voter base there and really obviously work the whole race thing. And I don't see him as entirely dissimilar from what Leticia James was doing. You know, this is a civil case. In her case, it's a criminal case because they were federal taxpayer dollars and she could actually find herself in the slammer for up to 30 years. In his case, he also was in a tremendous amount of trouble. In Donald Trump's case, which she was trying to bring against him, you know, that can't fly as a criminal prosecution because it was a civil case where you actually had no victims. I mean, so she's looking at 30 years. And gosh darn it, she ought to face them. Like, she really ought to face him. So I keep doing this story, and we got other news to get to today, I know, but I want to keep this front and center on your agenda because this is in some ways, I think, emblematic of everything that went down for the last 4 years of the Biden administration and everything that's coming forward now. So you had these unscrupulous, in my estimation, people who are now being accused of actual mortgage fraud that would be criminal in nature, and to think that she was trying to go after him for something similar where all the judges were like, you don't have a case here. So this is really important. This is really important because a lot of bad stuff went down, and I find this to be the most poetic of all of it, especially given that now that she's out of money and can't pay her high-priced attorney that represented Hunter Biden, you know, at least he had the art, I'm not sure what she's going to do other than maybe sell some of her assets? Justice.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Leticia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Oh, maybe this one will have to go. I mean, it's no Trump Tower. I'm looking at, for those that are listening on audio or the Spotify podcast just on audio, we're looking at a little picture of that house in Virginia, her quote unquote principal residence. Yeah, definitely not her principal residence. 30 years she's looking at, ladies and gentlemen, 30 years. I don't honestly think she's going to get all 30. I mean, maybe they'll say, hey, the threat of one and we'll let you off for good behavior. But I think there's a lot of shame that comes with this. I think she should be disbarred. New York is looking into that. We've heard, of course, from Elise Stefanik in the past. We've heard from others that are now going to the New York Bar Association and saying, wait a second, why can't you have this woman? If she's being accused, right, of this federal crime, once the indictment hits, I think you know what's going to hit the fan. It's kind of like out in Wisconsin where the judge got indicted by the federal government for impediment because she was bringing an illegal right into her courtroom. So, oh, ICE is over there. Let me just let you out the back door. So it's going to be a similar kind of thing. So there's going to be a lot of shame. Her political career is over. She hates Andrew Cuomo. I hate Andrew Cuomo, but I'm telling you, I'm going to like him when it's all said and done if he can get rid of Tishy. All right, like I'll have new respect for the guy. So he's not in her corner. The Democrats are backing away. The media is backing away, and you saw what the voters are doing. So Tish is going to be up a creek without a paddle, and I'm sure there's some good Fanny jokes we could make, but we'll keep it clean here. You know why? Because we are so proud. We're one of the top 100 podcasts right now on YouTube. And it's amazing. And it's all thanks to you guys and your support and everything that you're doing. I love being independent. I've been at all the big networks before. And trust me, it's a whole different ballgame over there. Part of being independent means we have our sponsors, and we love our sponsors for that. Patriot Mobile, which is such a great conservative company, cell phone provider. Of course, you can keep your number. If you switch to Patriot Mobile, you can actually also get a free month free as a friend of the show. PatriotMobile.com. They do a lot for our veterans. They support our Constitution. They're just a good company, right? And we like good companies. I'm telling you, if conservatives stick together and we get more and more and more of us, we're half the country. Kid Rock said this. Actually, we're going to play this as a short on my feed on YouTube this weekend. Kid Rock said this actually in an interview this week. He was like, you know what? I made a decision a long time ago. who cares about everybody else? Let me just be me and be one with my base, because you know what? That's like half the country. And so for all those that try to cancel us, guess what? We're half the country, and increasingly more than half the country. So we should support conservative businesses. And so you can do your part. Call 972-PATRIOT today, 972-PATRIOT. Mention my name. It helps me. It helps the show. And you get the free month. Patriot Mobile, wonderful company. PatriotMobile.com/Trish.